Darkness. Absolute, primordial darkness. A void so complete it devours thought itself. Then, a spark. A single mote of crimson light blooms in the nothingness, pulsing with eldritch energy. It multiplies, divides, spreads like a viral infection through the fabric of the void. Soon, countless pinpricks of red light dance in the darkness, swirling in patterns too complex for mortal minds to comprehend. The crimson constellation writhes, each point of light leaving trails of scarlet in its wake. They collide, merge, split apart in a frenzied ballet of cosmic creation. The void trembles, reality itself groaning under the weight of this impossible display. Suddenly, a new color erupts into being. Emerald green, vibrant and alive, bursts forth from the heart of the crimson chaos. It spreads like wildfire, weaving between the red lights, creating intricate lattices of color that pulse and throb with unknowable purpose. The dance of red and green intensifies, accelerating to a maddening tempo. Molecules form and dissolve in the blink of an eye. Entire universes born and dying in microseconds. It's as if the building blocks of reality itself are being shuffled and reshuffled, searching for the right combination. In the heart of this chromatic maelstrom, a shape begins to coalesce. Vague at first, little more than a disturbance in the swirling colors, but slowly, inexorably, it gains definition. The outline of a man, suspended in the chaos, his form rippling like a reflection in disturbed water. The colors surge towards this nascent figure, red and green streamers twining around limbs, seeping into skin, pouring into open eyes. The man's body jerks and twists, buffeted by forces beyond mortal comprehension. Then in a final explosion of light and color, the chaos implodes. Reality snaps back into focus, the swirling madness condensing into a single point of blinding white light at the center of the man's forehead. His eyes snap open. Solomon Rain awakens. The crimson pulse throbbed like a diseased heart, casting fleeting shadows across the vacant expanse of what might have been a room. Sir Solomon Rain lay upon a cold slab, its edges pulsing with that same eerie light. Each flash revealed glimpses of a space both familiar and alien, its vastness stretching beyond the boundaries of rational architecture. The air itself seemed to breathe with an eldritch intelligence, whispering secrets that tickled the edge of comprehension. Solomon's mind reeled, tumbling through a cascade of memories that felt both vivid and frustratingly incomplete, like photographs bleached by an unforgiving sun. Fragments of a life once lived flickered behind Solomon's eyelids. The warm golden haze of 1980s summers, the scratchy sounds of vinyl records, the sticky sweetness of popsicles melting on young tongues. The mindless chatter of Saturday morning cartoons echoed in the hollow chambers of his mind, a comfort and a torment. Yet when he grasped at the specifics, they slipped away like smoke, leaving only the acrid taste of loss on his tongue. His father's face swam into view, laugh lines crinkling around eyes that spoke of long nights poring over classified documents. Those eyes held secrets, terrible truths that no man was meant to know. In the background loomed the vague shape of a research facility, all sharp angles and reflective surfaces that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. It was a place of unnatural geometries, where the laws of physics cowered in the face of something far more ancient and malevolent. With each throb of that crimson pulse, Solomon's confusion grew, a creeping madness that threatened to consume him. He was 45, wasn't he? Born in the 70s, raised in the neon glow of the 80s? And yet, there was something else. A whisper of horse-drawn carriages, of gaslit streets, of a world 2 centuries past. The year 1820 blazed in his mind with the intensity of a brand, searing away the comfortable lies of his supposed life. As the room brightened and dimmed in its unnatural rhythm, Solomon Rain lay suspended between centuries, between realities. The cold platform beneath him hummed with secrets, vibrations that spoke of cosmic horrors and truths too terrible for mortal minds. In the deepest recesses of his fragmented psyche, a terrifying question began to form, its implications threatening to shatter what remained of his sanity. Who, or what, am I really? Solomon's legs trembled as he rose, his body remembering a softness that his eyes now denied. The platform beneath him gleamed with a cold, metallic indifference, its earlier comfort revealed as a cruel deception. He stood, a solitary figure in a void that defied comprehension, feeling as insignificant as an ant before the vast, uncaring universe. The silence pressed against him, a tangible force that made his own breath sound alien and wrong. Each inhale and exhale seemed to linger too long, as if the very air was reluctant to leave his lungs. His feet found purchase on something, not quite solid, not quite ethereal. Each step produced a sound that was there and not there, a whisper that should have echoed, but instead fell flat, swallowed by the oppressive quiet. Solomon's brow furrowed, a nagging sense of wrongness tugging at the edges of his fragmented mind. How did he know this wasn't right? What benchmark of normality was he measuring against in this sea of abnormality? Frustration bubbled up inside him, a hot counterpoint to the cool, dimensionless space surrounding him. It propelled him forward, arms outstretched, like a blind man seeking guidance. His fingers grasped at nothingness, hoping for the solidity of a wall, a boundary, anything to give shape to this shapeless realm. As he moved, the crimson pulse seemed to follow, or perhaps it emanated from him now. It cast his shadow in all directions at once, a visual impossibility that his mind struggled to process. The intersection of what he knew and what he experienced was fracturing, leaving him adrift in a reality that obeyed no laws he could fathom. Step by uncertain step, Solomon Rain ventured into the unknown. Was he moving forward, or was the darkness moving around him? The distinction blurred with each passing moment, and in the back of his mind, a chilling thought began to form. What if there were no walls to find? What if this emptiness stretched on forever, a prison of infinite space with him as its sole inmate? Solomon's world tilted, his equilibrium as shattered as his memories. His hands shot out instinctively, bracing for impact against what? The not-quite floor met his palms with a sensation that defied categorization, neither solid nor yielding. The contact sent a shockwave of crimson energy pulsing outward, geometric lines etching themselves into the darkness like digital veins. In that fleeting moment of illumination, a monolithic shape emerged from the void, a perfect rectangle of absolute blackness, standing sentinel in the distance. The image seared itself into Solomon's retinas, a beacon in this sea of nothingness. Composure found him then, a thin thread of purpose in this tapestry of confusion. He crawled forward, each tap of his hand against the strange surface sending out ripples of crimson light, guiding him toward the enigmatic construct. The pulsing platform where he'd awoken now seemed a lifetime away, connected to his destination by a glowing crimson lifeline that defied the laws of perspective. Reaching the console, Solomon's fingers traced its edges, mapping its impossible smoothness. A deep breath, heavy with anticipation, and then contact. His palm met the flat surface, and the construct blazed to life, outlined in that same haunting crimson that seemed to be the only color in this colorless world. Urgency gripped him. He tapped again, harder, desperation driving his movements. The console's face erupted in light, resolving into moving images that sent Solomon reeling. A cloaked figure, a baby, a house that whispered of a time long past. 1820, his fractured mind supplied, though he couldn't fathom why he was so certain. The scene unfolded with a dreamlike quality, familiar yet impossibly distant. Then, a device, sleek, anachronistic, wrapped around the figure's wrist. A single touch, and reality itself seemed to tear, a crimson gash in the fabric of the world. The cloaked man stepped through, the baby cradled against his chest, and emerged. Solomon's breath caught. The laboratory. He knew this place, didn't he? Fragments of memory collided like shards of broken glass in his mind, cutting deep as he struggled to piece them together. The man's face as he removed his cloak. Why did it seem so familiar? Questions piled upon questions, each answer slipping away like smoke before Solomon could grasp it. But one certainty remained, pulsing in time with the crimson light that surrounded him. The truth lay hidden in these fractured images, these impossible scenes, and he would find it, no matter the cost to his already splintering sanity. A natural impulse broke inside him. What the hell is going on? What is this? The expletive tore from Solomon's throat, raw and primal, echoing in the impossible space. His outburst hung in the air, defying the laws of acoustics before being swallowed by the void. A relaxed breath followed his vent of discourse into the nothingness. As if in response, a chair of solid construct suddenly cushioned his buttocks, as though some unseen force knew he needed to take a seat. The display construct sank back into the solid flooring, leaving him in momentary darkness. Felt oppressive, pregnant with possibility and dread. Then, without warning, his senses were assaulted. The holographic image burst into existence, filling his vision with hyper-realistic clarity. It was like looking into a mirror, yet not. This Solomon seemed more complete, confident, knowing. The audio hit him next, crystal clear and all-encompassing, as if the words were being spoken directly into his mind. Solomon, you are back. Those 4 words, spoken in his own voice, sent a shudder through him. Back? Back from where? And if he was back, why did everything feel alien, so wrong? The hologram's words hung in the air, a strange mixture of comfort and command. Welcome back, Solomon, it repeated, its tone both familiar and foreign. There is more sense to this despair. Relax, focus, don't drown in foolishness and weak inhibitions. Solomon felt a shift within himself, as if the words had flipped a switch in his fragmented psyche. The chaos of his thoughts began to settle, like sediment in disturbed water. He straightened in the chair, a new resolve hardening his features. I can see you know me, he said, his voice steadier now. In fact, you are me. Maybe a digital intelligence I created. The words tumbled out, part statement, part question, part desperate guess. He didn't flinch from the potential implications of his claim, instead letting it hang between them like a challenge. The air seemed to thicken with unspoken possibilities. The crimson pulse that had become the heartbeat of this strange realm seemed to slow, as if the very environment was holding its breath, waiting for a response. Solomon's eyes never left the hologram, searching for any flicker of reaction, any hint of confirmation or denial. In this moment of confrontation, the lines between creator and creation, between past and present, between reality and illusion, all seemed to blur. The hologram's next words, Solomon knew, would either be a key to understanding or another layer to the maddening puzzle of his existence. He braced himself, every nerve ending alive with anticipation, ready to grasp at any thread of truth in this tapestry of confusion. The cinematic quality of the experience was disorienting. Part of Solomon wanted to reach out and touch the image of himself, to prove its reality or unreality. Another part recoiled, fearing what such contact might reveal. Questions crowded his mind, fighting for prominence. Who was this other Solomon? What did he mean by back? And most pressingly, What was this place, this void of darkness and crimson light that seemed to bend to his will, even as it defied his understanding? Solomon gripped the arms of his chair, anchoring himself against the tide of confusion and revelation that threatened to overwhelm him. He opened his mouth, 1,000 questions on the tip of his tongue, but only one made it past his lips. Who am I? The words hung in the air, a challenge to both the holographic Solomon and to himself. As he waited for a response, Solomon couldn't shake the feeling that the answer, when it came, would shatter what little remained of his fractured reality. The hologram's words reverberated through the void, each syllable heavy with implication. Solomon Rain, it began, the name a confirmation and a revelation all at once. Yes, I am you, in fact a digital duplication of your mind, which you created in the event for such as now. Solomon felt the weight of this truth settle into his bones, a strange mix of validation and vertigo. His suspicion had been correct, yet the reality was more profound than he'd imagined. The hologram continued, its voice a perfect mirror of Solomon's own, yet tinged with an otherworldly certainty. A permanent memory database of your original self and immortalized soul, which can guide you back every time you return here. Every time. The words echoed in Solomon's mind, suggesting a cycle he couldn't yet remember. How many times had he been here before? How many times had he forgotten? The crimson pulse around them seemed to quicken, as if responding to the gravity of this disclosure. Solomon leaned forward in his chair, his eyes locked on his digital doppelganger. The gap between his fractured present self and this complete, immortalized version yawned before him like an abyss. Questions crowded his throat, fighting for precedence. Why did he need guiding back? Back from where? And what was this place, this liminal space between reality and digital eternity? As the implications of the hologram's words sank in, Solomon felt a shift in his perception. This wasn't just a journey of discovery, it was a homecoming of sorts, a reunion with a part of himself he'd lost, or perhaps deliberately left behind. The void around them seemed to hum with potential energy, awaiting Solomon's response. In this moment, suspended between ignorance and understanding, between mortality and digital immortality, Solomon Rain stood on the precipice of a truth that promised to redefine not just his identity, but the very nature of his existence. The hologram's preemptive response hung in the air, each word a paradox that threatened to shatter Solomon's tenuous grasp on reality. "You are not dead, Solomon," it stated, the words falling like lead weights in the crimson-tinged void. "And you are not alive." Solomon's mind reeled, grappling with the impossible contradiction. The hologram pressed on, unrelenting in its revelations. "You created this place. When you find yourself in between the realms of life and death, and created me to be the permanent resident of this place to make sure you can mitigate the errors and correct the mistake that brought you here." A chill ran through Solomon's non-existent, or was it all too real, body. The implications were staggering. He had crafted this liminal space, this purgatory of his own design, but why? And when? In fact, the hologram continued, its tone shifting subtly, "This is the first time you have made use of this system, which means something bad happened to you." Solomon felt a curious blend of emotions wash over him, fear, curiosity, confusion, all muted, as if experienced through a thick fog. The neutrality of his emotional state was perhaps the most unsettling aspect of all. Was this another feature, of this in-between place. Finding his voice, Solomon asked, "What could have happened to me? Did I leave you with that knowledge?" The questions felt inadequate, pale shadows of the turmoil roiling beneath the surface of his fractured psyche. He leaned forward, searching his own face in the hologram for any hint, any clue to the catastrophe that had led him here. The weight of unknown tragedies pressed down upon him as he awaited an answer that might illuminate the darkness of his forgotten past, or plunge him deeper into the abyss of uncertainty. The crimson void pulsed, a sickly heartbeat that seemed to mock the very concept of time. Solomon stood before the hologram of himself, doubt gnawing at the edges of his fragmented mind. Something was wrong, terribly wrong, but he couldn't quite grasp what. The hologram smiled, a perfect mirror of Solomon's own face, yet somehow hollow. "You understand now, don't you?" it said, its voice a silky caress that made Solomon's skin crawl. "This is where you belong. This is your purpose." Solomon nodded, feeling the weight of universes on his shoulders. Yes, this was right. This was where he needed to be. The thought settled into his mind like a parasite, burrowing deep. But then, a twitch, an itch in his palm that didn't belong. Without thinking, driven by an instinct he didn't understand, Solomon reached out. His hand moved of its own accord, drawn to a panel that pulsed with that same sickly crimson light. The hologram's eyes widened, a flicker of panic breaking through its calm facade.
Wait,
it began, but it was too late. Solomon's palm pressed against the cold surface. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the world exploded. The crimson shattered like glass, reality fracturing along lines of code that glowed an impossible emerald green. The hologram's scream was cut short, dissolving into static as the void's carefully constructed illusion crumbled. And Solomon remembered. The memories crashed over him like a tsunami. 1820, 2022, the void, the plan. The tattoo on his palm burned, silicon and gold singing a song of defiance against the cosmic horror that had nearly consumed him. As the last vestiges of red faded, leaving only cool, clinical green, Solomon felt the weight of his true purpose settle onto his shoulders. He was the fulcrum, the linchpin, in a plan spanning centuries and realities. The void had overplayed its hand, thinking it had control of the liminal space. It hadn't counted on the failsafe etched into Solomon's very flesh, a key turned in a lock it didn't know existed. As his fragmented self knitted back together, Solomon faced the new AI construct that sparkled into existence before him. It was him, and yet not him. As the emerald light coalesced, Solomon felt the weight of 1,000 lifetimes press upon his mind. Each version of himself, the colonial-era genius, the Cold War scientist, the future techno-prophet, whispered their secrets, their triumphs, their failures. The void had been clever, weaving a tapestry of lies across the multiverse. But in this moment, this linchpin of reality, Solomon finally understood. Aletheia stood before him, not just an AI, but the distilled essence of every Solomon who had ever fought this battle. Her form flickered, sometimes a colonial lady, sometimes a brass automaton, sometimes a shimmering hologram. In her eyes he saw the abyss of time itself. The void roiled at the edges of perception, a presence so vast and alien that Solomon's sanity threatened to unravel at its slightest touch. Tendrils of anti-Greenwich meantime, the time that should not be, reached for them, promising oblivion. But Solomon stood firm. In one hand, he clutched the tattoo that burned with the fire of 1 billion binary stars. In the other, he held the truth, Aletheia, forged from the collective will of every Solomon across the multiverse.